class. Next week is finals week, so we need to start talking about what that's going to look like for you. First thing is that you're going to have to turn in your final paper. So I just wanted to review those final paper requirements again. We did this when we looked at the rough draft, but I'm going to talk a little bit about a few things that I didn't spend as much time talking about in the rough draft video. So basic requirements of thesis: use your 3 X's, add some storytelling, should be 6 to 8 pages long. You need a works cited with 5 sources, and of course, a title. So let's talk about the thesis. This is a very condensed version of the thesis video. So your thesis statement should answer the question, what does it mean to be a blank? And the blank is an aspect of your identity. A easy way to do this thesis, if you're struggling to write one, is to set it up like, to me, right here, being an X means A, B, and C. Those A, B, and C's could be those subtopics that we've talked about, and it could be any kind of the main subtopics that have come up in your research and in your stories. Another thing that I hope that you will use to help structure your paper is the 3X strategy. We talked about this where you have exposition or topic sentences and thesis statements, example, which are quotes, personal stories, anecdotes, statistics, proof of some kind, and then explanation, where you comment about how the examples connect to whatever your reasoning is. This setup is really similar to the quote sandwich setup that we've talked about, where you set up the idea, you provide the example, the quote, the thing that you're talking about, and then be sure to follow all of that up with explanation. A basic setup for your paper may look like this, where you have your thesis, to me, being an X means A, B, and C, and then your paper is organized into section A with its exposition, example, and explanation set up, then section B and section C. This doesn't necessarily mean that you'll just have 3 paragraphs. It means that you'll have a section related to this, getting into the ideas presented in your first subtopic that you want to talk about. And then same thing with the B and C. The other element is storytelling. If we go back to this slide, your storytelling fits into the example portion of the 3X. So with storytelling, one way that you can think of the entire assignment is to think of it as a beefed up, mega beefy, pumped up mega beefy reflective narrative about you, where you have your stories about yourself, and then you go in and you say, well, that's similar to this research or this other person's experience. And so really, ideally, the story is the central part of what you're communicating in this final paper. As you're doing this paper, don't forget to pull out all the stops with the writer's toolbox we worked with at the beginning of the semester. Use your dialogue, use thought shots, use exploding a moment, and snapshots to create colorful, memorable stories that will move your readers' hearts and minds. The next piece is on incorporating sources, and I wanted to just go through this one more time. Main thing that I'm looking for with incorporating sources is, first, using those quote sandwiches. 2, include correctly formatted introductory tags. 3, use more tags than you think you need. And finally, that concept, you are the star, not your sources. So use your quote sandwiches. Set up your sources with tags. like according to cartoonist Linda Berry and what it is, blah, blah, blah. Use the correct punctuation for your sources, where you capitalize the first word of your tag, end your tag with a comma, quotation marks around your quote with a capitalized first letter of your quote, and your period inside the quotation marks, unless you have a parenthetical citation, in which case the period goes outside. Again, with those parenthetical citations, this is what they may look like if you're doing that format. MLA has last name and the page number, Chicago, last name, date, comma, page number, and APA, it's last name, comma, date. The next piece is that being sure that you incorporate as many tags as you possibly can in your pieces. Every single time that you refer to something that the person said, every single sentence that has something that refers to another person's words, either include a tag that says their name or put it into a parenthetical citation. And you've seen this slide before, but be sure that you're the central voice in your paper and that the rest of them are just people you've brought in to have a conversation with you. Citations is the next piece of this. Make sure your reader can find all your sources on your works cited page, and also format your works cited page as correctly as possible. So be sure that your works cited page looks something like this, with all of your authors listed in alphabetical order by last name. Notice that it's all double spaced. We don't have extra spaces between each source because it's in hanging indentation, and that's how we know that we're moving on to the next source. The basic format for MLA citations is author, last name, comma, first period, the title of the small thing with a period inside the quotation marks, the container that holds the smaller thing that is italicized with the comma. This may be a website or a journal or a magazine or a newspaper. And then the date followed by a comma, and the location. The location may be a page number, but it also may be a URL or link. The next piece is that being sure that your reader can find the source on your in your works cited page by whatever information you've provided in the text of your paper. A reader will look for the B in Linda Berry to try to find the source in your works cited. So be sure that there is the correct information there to lead your readers to the right place. So I say all this stuff about trying to get things perfect as possible. But I recognize that really, if you've been doing all of the assignments up until this point, that process of doing each of those little things along the way is so much more valuable than whatever your end product looks like. If you come out of this having written a bibliography and written annotations, you have learned a lot, and I recognize that and value it, which is why this paper, it's weighted enough to motivate you, but it's not so much that it's going to make a huge dent in your grade. If you've been following all along, I hope that you recognize that that process is really what matters. That's where the learning happens. The final evaluation criteria is here. I have a couple activities for it that you can do to practice applying them and see what they look like with a couple example papers. And that's that for your final paper. Next piece of what's coming up is your final exam. For your final exam, it's a reflection on your experiences as a student and a writer over the past semester and or year. If you want to talk about it for the full year, you can. This final exam is provided in a worksheet that's available on Moodle. It's also linked to it in the slideshow. On this worksheet, I ask you to answer these questions. Has your perspective on writing and writers changed? How? Why? What do you think was the most stealable criteria for good writing we discovered this semester? What are your strengths as a writer? How have you improved and grown as a student and a writer? In what way? Please refer to specific examples. What do you still want to improve, and why? How can you use your strengths to develop your weaknesses? Be specific. And then I have a space at the bottom to make any additional comments or reflections that didn't fit into any of those questions above. The evaluation criteria puts most of the emphasis on development, so making sure that you've actually provided some explanation and examples of your thought process is important. The last piece of thing that we need to talk about for this the end of the semester countdown is the due date. Everything must be submitted by Tuesday of finals week at midnight. After that point, I'm not accepting anything else. On Wednesday, I start grading, and that's just the way it goes. I'm really good about late work all semester, and so at the end, I get tough. And no matter what, I'm going to say no after that Tuesday. So the due date includes the final exam, the final research project, everything, all late work. You can still submit late work up until that point. Everything needs to be in by Tuesday of finals week at 11:59 p.m. So be sure you get that done. And now I'm going to leave you. I have another video with my parting thoughts for the semester, and I hope you take a look at that. And hopefully that will also give you some help as you go into finishing your final paper. Happy writing, and I'll see you soon.